My name is Zelda Fight. 3 months ago, I watched my supervisor erase what she thought were just spreadsheets and notes, casual data not worth a second glance. She stood behind my desk in front of the entire department, declared that my year's worth of work was worthless garbage, and with one dramatic tap of the keyboard, hit delete. 23 colleagues watched in stunned silence. What she didn't realize was that she had just wiped out the invisible framework that had been quietly holding our company together. And 30 seconds later, when my phone rang with a $500,000 job offer, I understood something profound. She had handed me the perfect weapon. Before I walk you through the most satisfying professional revenge I could ever imagine, watching her panic while the ground crumbled beneath her, have one small ask: hit that like button and subscribe, because this story isn't just about me. It's about how cruelty, when aimed in the wrong direction, can backfire in ways so poetic you almost feel sorry for the person who caused it. Almost. Let's go back to where this all really began, because revenge doesn't start at the explosion, it starts with the spark. 18 months ago, I joined Peden Analytics as a client relationship coordinator. On paper, the role sounded mundane: log communication, schedule follow-ups, track satisfaction scores. What they didn't tell me was that the company was bleeding clients. The person before me lasted for months and left without a goodbye. From day one, my supervisor, Quinn Lebrexworth, made it crystal clear she thought my job was a waste of payroll. To her, business relationships were strictly transactional: send invoice, provide service, collect payment, repeat. The idea that clients might value actual human connection, that was alien to her. But I saw something different. In those first few weeks, I combed through years of client interactions. What I found were dry logs, robotic conversations, and zero evidence that anyone had made an effort to connect on a personal level. So I did something radical. I treated our clients like people. When Vernon Hodgecraft, owner of a mid-sized manufacturing firm, mentioned in passing that his golden retriever had hip problems, I noted it. 2 weeks later, I asked how the dog was doing. His surprise turned into a 20-minute conversation about vet visits and dog-friendly hiking trails. When Costas Farweather hit our company's 15-year anniversary, I sent a thoughtful message to acknowledge the milestone, and she booked an extra $12,000 in services. These weren't grand gestures, just attention, kindness, and follow-through. Quinlan never got it. She'd see me taking notes during client calls and shake her head in disdain. During reviews, she'd flip through my reports like they were dirty laundry. "Why are you spending 45 minutes on calls that should take 15? She'd snap, tapping her clipboard. "You're dragging down efficiency." I explained that longer calls were leading to stronger loyalty, that clients were asking for me by name, that our retention rates had jumped by 37% since I personalized our approach. She didn't care. Her world ran on formulas. Mine was running on trust. What she didn't see was that I was quietly becoming the bridge between our company and the people funding its future. Roderick Yates, who owned a bookstore chain, started calling me directly because I remembered his love for vintage mystery novels and that his daughter was majoring in literature. Tempest Livingwell, a catering mogul whose account was one of our biggest, started referring new clients our way, not because of discounts or slick presentations, because I listened to her stories about her grandmother's recipes and weekend market trips. The more I listened, the more loyalty we earned. Our numbers rose, client satisfaction soared. But Quinlan remained laser-focused on speed and metrics that missed the point entirely. Then came the annual strategic meeting. CEO Gideon Ashworth mentioned client retention had hit record highs and praised our relationship-building strategy. He suggested expanding it company-wide. I watched Quinlan's face stiffen. The success she'd been trying to bury had just been applauded by the highest voice in the room. After the meeting, she cornered me near the supply room. "I don't know what kind of performance theater you're pulling," she hissed, "but this company runs on professionalism, not social hour." Then came the punishment. She assigned me a full audit of every client interaction I'd had over the past year, an exhausting, meticulous task clearly meant to bog me down and humiliate me. But I turned that audit into a masterpiece. I documented everything, every call, every follow-up, every tiny detail that turned connection into revenue. I showed how Tempest's referrals brought in thousands, how Vernon expanded his services, how early renewals came from trust, not sales tactics. The final audit, 53 pages, cold, hard proof that genuine connection was paying off over $200,000 worth. It was the most important work I'd ever done, a blueprint for human-first business success, which made what came next feel like a punch to the throat. One Tuesday morning, Quinla called an all-hands meeting. She said we'd be reviewing client communication strategies and that my audit would be our case study. I was hopeful. Maybe she was finally seeing the value. Instead, she pulled my files onto the conference room screen and started tearing them apart. She mocked the personal notes, scoffed at the follow-ups, called my methods emotional overreach and a breach of professional conduct. This, she said, voice cold and sharp, is the kind of inefficiency that threatens our standards. She scrolled through my year of work like it was a cautionary tale while I stood there, heart pounding, watching her turn my proudest achievements into office gossip fodder. But then, she crossed a line even I didn't think she'd dare cross. She pulled up the Filmy Complete Audit database, every client note, every relationship detail, every conversation carefully logged over a year of building real trust, the very proof that personal attention had been driving our company's best year in client retention and revenue. Her finger hovered over the delete button as she delivered her monologue on professional standards. This entire approach is garbage, she declared coldly. Starting today, we return to efficient, professional client communication protocols. Then she clicked. Just like that, 53 pages of documented relationship building gone, a full year of work, erased in front of 23 silent colleagues, many of whom had seen firsthand the impact of those relationships. The room went still, no one spoke, even the air seemed to freeze, as the screen blinked back to an empty file list. Quinla turned from the monitor with a self-satisfied smirk, assuming I'd quietly accept the humiliation and fall back in line with her robotic version of professionalism. But she made a fatal miscalculation. She deleted my documentation but not the relationships. She couldn't erase the trust I'd built, or the conversations that had become the backbone of our most loyal client accounts. And as it turned out, some of those clients had been watching the internal drama more closely than anyone realized. Before Quinla even finished outlining her new communication protocols, my phone buzzed. The caller would read, Marlowe Partners, a new consulting firm founded by 3 of our former executives who had left Peyton a few months earlier. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway, my hands still trembling from what had just happened. Zelda, said the voice on the other end, calm and direct, we saw what went down in that meeting. We want to talk. They'd been tracking the rise in client retention. They knew exactly who was behind the renewed loyalty of Peyton's biggest accounts. They planned to reach out eventually, but today, after watching Quinla torch my work in a feat of control and ego, they decided to act fast. We're prepared to offer you a base salary of $500,000, they said, plus equity and full control over how you build client relationships. We believe connection is the future of consulting and we want you to lead that future with us. The money was double my current compensation, but the true reward was the validation someone finally saw the value in what Quinla dismissed as inefficiency. And best of all, they didn't want stolen data or shortcuts. We know you can't take proprietary files from Peyton, they said, but you don't need to. Clients stay because of trust, not spreadsheets. If they choose to follow you, it's not theft, it's preference. I knew what they meant. They weren't asking me to poach accounts, they were pointing out something far more powerful. When people feel seen and valued, they don't care about logos or a legacy, they care about loyalty. Back in the conference room, Quinla was still droning on about protocol adherence. The tension in the room was thick. Most of my co-workers avoided eye contact, pretended not to have witnessed the public deletion of my career-defining work. She spotted me returning and paused. "Do you have any questions about the new communication procedures?" I looked at the screen, now blank, and then at the faces around the room, some confused, others wide-eyed. Then I looked straight at Quinla. "Actually," I said, "I have something to announce." You could hear a pin drop. What happened next would become one of the most satisfying moments of my life, not because I set out to destroy Quinla or the company, but because she had just unknowingly handed me the perfect exit day platform to reveal the quiet power of respect, loyalty, and human connection. By deleting my audit, she hadn't just erased files. She had demolished the only thing holding our largest accounts in place. "I'm resigning from Begin Analytics, effective immediately," I said. "I've accepted an offer from Marlowe Partners as their Director of Client Relations." Shock rippled through the room. You could hear the HVAC buzzing, someone's pen clicking nervously. Quinla's expression morphed from smug to confused, then to something dangerously close to panic. "You can't just walk out in the middle of a department meeting," she sputtered. "There are procedures, notice periods." I pulled out my phone and held up the offer. "My contract allows immediate resignation in cases of hostile conduct or professional sabotage. Publicly deleting my work in front of the entire team qualifies as both." Gideon Ashworth, our CEO, who had been standing silently in the back of the room, took a step forward. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately," he offered. But I was done being quiet. "She chose to humiliate me publicly," I said. "She can live with the public consequences." I gathered my things from the conference table slowly, deliberately. Every eye in the room followed me. A few colleagues looked stunned, a few looked inspired, one or two looked like they were rethinking their entire career plan. "You're making a huge mistake," Quinla shouted after me, her voice shrill now. "Marlowe is a startup, no track record, no stability. You're throwing away your future on some idealistic fantasy." I paused at the door. "We'll see which future proves more valuable," I said. By the next morning, my desk was cleared, my badge turned in. I started at Marlowe Partners that same afternoon. Their space was smaller, their furniture less polished, but the energy, electric. These people wanted to build something real, and they knew that real relationships, not robotic processes, were what truly drove business forward. But the best part? Over the next few weeks, I watched the fallout unfold on its own. No sabotage, no schemes, just natural consequences in motion. Clients started calling Marlowe directly. Not because I asked them to, because they wanted to. Because they miss being treated like humans. Because they remembered the person who remembered them. And Quinla, she had no idea how to bring them back. All she had left were empty protocols and a blank screen. Marlowe Partners was thriving for beyond even our most optimistic projections. Meanwhile, Begin Analytics was unraveling under the worst client retention crisis in its history. The most satisfying part wasn't the money, or the promotion, or even the sudden professional prestige. It was knowing that this entire collapse was engineered by Quinla herself, born from her own refusal to see the truth right in front of her. She could have embraced the approach I pioneered. She could have recognized that our clients wanted more than speed, they wanted to feel seen. She could have paid attention to the improved satisfaction, metrics, and loyalty trends. But instead, she chose to humiliate me and erase the work that had generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in recurring business. She bet everything on her belief that efficiency mattered more than connection. And she lost. 2 months after my departure, I started hearing whispers. Gideon Ashworth had called an emergency board meeting. Begin Analytics was bleeding clients. The revenue drop was so steep, they were now considering layoffs, scaling down operations, and possibly selling what was left to stay afloat. Quinla was now in damage control, Mata desperately trying to explain how, in just 8 weeks, the firm had lost most of its key accounts. Her first move: blame me. She reportedly claimed I poisoned client relationships, or worse, stolen them. But the timeline told another story. Clients didn't leave the day I walked out. They left after trying to stay and realizing that under Quinla's cold, mechanical system, the person who cared was gone. The board's internal review confirmed what I could have told them from the beginning. People don't stay because of response time, metrics, or tidy CRM locks. They stay because they feel valued, understood, respected. And when those things vanish, so do they. Quinla had spent a year reducing human connection to chit-chat. Nah, that belief system was destroying her bottom line. 3 months after I left, the final chapter wrote itself. Gideon called me directly. He framed it as a strategic partnership opportunity. Peden wanted to know if Marlowe Partners would consider acquiring their remaining client accounts and possibly absorb a portion of their staff. The company that once declared my methods worthless now wanted to hand us their future. And that wasn't all. Toward the end of the call, Gideon asked, "What would it take to bring you back?" As Director of Client Relations, we're prepared to offer full autonomy and a substantial compensation package. 3 months earlier, they deleted my work in front of an entire department. Now they were offering me power, money, and control to implement the exact system they once mocked. I didn't need time to think. "I appreciate the offer," I told him, "but I'm very happy where I am." Marlowe Partners recognized the value of relationship building from the start, for it became a crisis response. 6 months after leaving Peden, I was promoted to senior partner at Marlowe, with equity and oversight of client strategy across multiple divisions. The very clients who'd followed me became the foundation of our strongest year yet. And P10. They initiated the strategic restructuring Gideon had alluded to. 30% of the staff was laid off. Their headquarters was sold. Eventually, they merged with a competitor that valued automation and efficiency above all else. Quinla wasn't retained. Her name vanished from the leadership roster, confirmed quietly through LinkedIn updates and whispered conversations in the industry. From what I've heard, she spent her final months at Peden trying to mimic client-focused strategies, but without warmth, without intuition, without care, just templated scripts and calculated touches that rang hollow. She never understood. The failure wasn't her spreadsheets, it was her worldview. She believed relationships were secondary, disposable, replaceable. And that belief was her downfall. The last I heard, she was struggling to land a similar position. Potential employers were worried of a leader whose final legacy was a catastrophic loss of trust and business. I don't take joy in her struggles, but I do take quiet satisfaction in what followed. The philosophy she dismissed is now an industry standard. Major firms are investing heavily in personal relationship strategies. Workshops emphasize emotional intelligence and trust building. And the very practices she once called garbage are now recognized as critical to long-term client retention. She didn't just lose a job. She became the cautionary tale of an era that thought people could be processed like transactions. And I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't scheme. I didn't sabotage. She destroyed herself by making the wrong bet in front of the wrong people at exactly the wrong time. That's the most elegant revenge of all. Not screaming, not revenge plots, just walking away and letting natural consequences finish the story. Then, 2 years later, I leave